Good. So let's not go by the TV clock. Let's go by Verizon time. So it is 5 o'clock, 5:01 now. We will call the meeting to order of our April 7th, 2026 Finance Committee meeting, and we'll begin with introductions over here. McKinnon,
Megan Carlson, Linda Caputo,
Becky Fless,
Dan Coots.
Joanne O'Brien,
Jeff Hanley.
administrative staff.
Katie Gould, Superintendent,
Andrea Dish, Business Manager.
Sarah Bolduc, Director of Special Services.
Josh Farr, Director of Adult Ed.
Lauren Arnold, Principal at Gardner Area High School.
Sarah Sims, Principal at Gardner Regional Middle School,
Vicki Duguay, Principal at Riverview Community School.
Chris Levine, Principal at Laura E. Richards School. Angela Hardy, Director of Curriculum.
Terry McGuire, Director of Technology.
Gabe Dostey, Facilities Director.
I would like to praise all the administrators in the back row who say their school names without flaw. There are a lot of words to throw together in a sentence, so good for you.
Just so you know, it stresses me out every time I'm afraid I'm gonna forget it.
I did watch you pause, and that's what made me think I have to say something nice.
I never take Area High School.
It's a lot, it's a mouthful. All those schools are a mouthful, so thank you. Okay, so here we are again to discuss the budget. We'll start tonight with the adult ed budget 2026, 2027 budget for adult ed. Yes, we will.
So I'm going to go over what I put in front of you as far as the budget, and then I will let the board ask questions to Josh about his program, but I want you to see what you have in front of you so that you can ask questions. So the first stapled group of documents is adult ed. It includes several documents stapled into one. So the first 5 pages are his summary budget. And I'll go over that. And then the backside of page 3 is actually a revenue budget. It's where his revenue is coming from. And then the last page of this is his worksheet, much like the worksheet that you see when we do the district's budget. So the adult ed program is broken out into 2 funds. There's Fund 1500. So if you look on page 1, you see that all of the numbers start with 1500. That's where the instructional programs of adult ed belong. It includes things like Office of the Director, as well as where his HiSET, which is what we used to refer to as GED. It also has Career and Tech, as well as College Transitions Department. So that portion of his budget is actually up by $36,465.05. So it's an increase of 19.51%. The other portion of his budget is the enrichment portion, which is the classes that you often see in the mailers that go around. It includes things like the paint classes and basket weaving and mushroom foraging. And I'm not up on the latest classes, but those are a few that I can remember. This section is broken out into enrichment programs, which is the first section. And you'll see on line 52 that first number starts with 6150. Again, those are the fund that enrichment program lives, and that's according to the state. The state makes us divide out his instructional programs or our instructional programs from the enrichment programs. And the second section of enrichment, you see another, like a small subset. One of them is for driver's ed and the other one is for trips. So we've broken out them separately so we could see revenue that we're receiving from enrichment trips. For those of you who remember, we sometimes organize trips to Boston or all throughout. And then the last one is a driver's ed program that we partner with, Roy's Driving Academy. We get revenue from them and we enroll their students. So that is how that's broken out. That portion is actually up $6,668 for an increase, take that back. We want to look at the bottom of page 4, that's actually down $29,797.05 for a reduction of $45.77. The standalone that you see on page 5 is the combination of those two programs, both the instructional and the enrichment. His increase for the two programs is up only $6,668 for an increase of 2.65%. So on the next page is where you see the revenues are coming from. So if my system or the accounting system is a little funky, in this world, whenever you see anything in parentheses on a revenue sheet, it's a good thing. So it's not these aren't deficits, it's income coming in. So you see that he is proposing that we send $105,450 to locals, which is the same amount that we've sent for a significant number of years. There hasn't been an increase. You will see where there is subsidy in the amount from the state in the amount of $71,109.84. He is predicting, He is predicting to receive about $46,800 in revenue for the 16 to 20-year-olds. Two things that you are missing is carry forward. We're actually going to use that in the enrichment portion because that is the one that's running that the revenues and the expenditures don't total. So there needs to be a transfer from one of those funds to the other to make the funds match. So in other words, revenues and expenditures and funds need to net out to zero. And in order to make this happen, there needed to be a transfer. I know it's confusing. In the enrichment portion, he expects 11,000 in enrichment from registrations. He's expecting 8,000 in trip receipts. He's expecting 5,000 in driver's ed receipts. Here you'll see that transition in the revenue from the adult ed. Actually, you see carry forward first in the amount of $3,609.54. And I want to be clear, the adult ed carry forward is separate from the district's carry forward. Adult ed has their own carry forward that can only be used for adult ed. And then the last item you see is that fund transfer that I mentioned earlier. The $7,698 basically means that Fund 1500 has $7,698.62 more in revenue than it does in expenditure. So we're going to use that to help fund the enrichment program. So if you look at the bottom of the expenditures and the bottom of the revenues, they tie out, they equal the same. I know it's a lot. The other thing on this report that I want you to see, I don't know that we've ever gone over a summary. So what you see, I'm looking at this report. The first column is this year's budget. The next column is the budget we passed last year. Obviously, the next column is the difference between the two. The percentage is the percentage of the difference between last year's and this year's budget, or actually next year's and this year's budget. 1 year prior column is actually expenditures in for this year's budget. So while it says 1 year prior, it actually means the current year. And then you'll see 2 year prior, that is the school year that ended June 30th, 2025. And then obviously the 3 years prior is the school year that ended June 30th, 2024. So if you look across, you can see his expenditures and his revenue over several years and where we are today.
Can we take a brief side quest to remind everybody about the funding for adult ed, because there was a change, and so it is a different sort of system to understand.
So this year, the state proposed removing their adult ed subsidy from part of their, so adult ed gets funding from a lot of really funky areas. They get their own subsidy, but part of their subsidy used to run through our ED 279. And when we talked about the ED 279 in that 3-hour meeting, I showed you where the adult ed subsidy used to live. Basically, it counted students 16 through 20-year-olds who adult ed was servicing, and part of that revenue flowed through our ED 279 and was included as part of our subsidy. For this year, the state has removed the adult ed funding from the ED 279. Honestly, I don't know why it was ever there. I'm glad that they moved it. So they are getting subsidy entirely from the state, separate from the district subsidy. So you've heard me talk about the 14,500 that we had in our budget to give adult ed for that subsidy flowing through our budget. That has been removed. So if you look at the expenditure articles, if you look at the revenue page, you will see on page, so it's the backside of the third sheet, I know, lots. On page, on line 7, actually, you will see where last year there was an amount for 14,500. You will see that that is not there this year. So that is where we as one of our budget cuts, we removed that. They did get their subsidy allocation directly from the state. They are getting more directly from the state. And there's opportunity to get more in the funding for 16 to 20-year-olds. So before I turn this over to Josh, I just want to go over the worksheet with you. It looks exactly the same as the worksheet we do for the district. And it just captures everything that we talk about. So up in the left-hand corner, there's miscellaneous receipts. In there are the receipts that we just went through on that revenue page. In the right-hand corner, you see this year's budget and last year's budget. You see the $6,668 in additional budget, or 2.65%. If you go a little further down, you see the subsidy allocation that he received, or that they said that he'll receive or will receive, and the amount of $71,109.84, which leaves the amount that the locals would need to pick up. We chatted about that. The $105,450, which has been the same for years and years. I don't remember the last time we increased it. If you look below in the colored blocks, you'll see, just like ours, how the state valuation has changed the percentages, right? So you see that the state valuation for the 4 towns has increased by 16.89%. Adult ed uses the same when we send the locals their portion, we use the same formula. The percentage changes because of that percentage of overall valuation. So at the bottom, what you see is while there's no increase to the overall, what you see is a little bit of change between each of the 4 communities. So you see Gardner increase by $692.21. And then you see the other 3 communities decrease based on their percentage of the valuation. Any questions? I know I just threw a lot at you. Any questions about this part of it before I turn it over to Josh to see if you have any questions about adult ed? Everyone good? All set? Okay.
Josh, can you plan to remind everybody about the structure of our hub and Kennebec
Yes.
neighbors?
So adult education, kind of a lot of ups and downs these last few months around budgets, including the 16 to 20 notification, which we found out about when the ED 279s actually came out. We were like, what is that? We had no idea how much money that was going to mean for us. Anyway, we are organized in hubs throughout the state. Kennebec County is Hub 5, and we collaborate with Waterville, Augusta, and Maranacook, and obviously Winthrop and Gardner together. The grant funding that we have traditionally received has gone through the hubs, which has allowed for some local control of grant funding and allowed us to get more funds than perhaps we have traditionally seen, or we would have seen as a percentage of what is offered. So we have a Maine College and Career Access Grant, which is a state grant, and then we have an AFLA Adult Education and Family Literacy Act, which is a federal grant. And we have traditionally gotten monies from those. AFLA is currently not funded for next year. Or excuse me, MCCA is up in question with the state because the state is considering a bill right now that is going to roll those funds into subsidy. So that could be another transition we face after this. But the hubs, I'm sorry, back to the question. The hubs share resources. We refer to each other. Students do move and go back and forth. We sometimes collaborate and provide support in different areas. We do a regular professional development day together in January every year. It's good to have colleagues. They are facing, because of all the changes in budget, it's been different for each one of them. It was more beneficial for Augusta than it was for Waterville. There's a lot of ups and downs. Thankfully, we're kind of stable and when it all comes out. So is that what you wanted? Did you want more on the hubs or?
Yeah, and specifically Kennebec Neighbors.
Yeah, so Kennebec Neighbors is a collaboration with Winthrop, whereby I'm over there one day and right now I'm there 3 days. And we do that to kind of reduce the expense, particularly we had a lot of expenses for enrichment went up in terms of printing and mailing. There's some efficiencies that we have in terms of us being able to kind of follow up on our reporting and with potential students from either location, doing online, we do online courses for HiSET Prep, which we're able to do for students in both locations, which is a benefit to us. It's increased enrollment. And the 16 to 20-year-old change this year actually gives us, for the first time that I know, an enrollment-based funding source. So we'll see how it shakes out in the years following. But I work, like I said, I'm over in Winthrop on Tuesdays. I bring the staff together as a whole. I try to align processes that they have over there and over here without creating too much issue, which sometimes isn't the case. Andrea can attest to. But I think on the whole, it is a benefit to both programs to have that collaboration continue. So is there any other things about that you want me to speak to? I know I'm realizing that some of the board members are new and we may not have had this conversation before, so.
Yeah, and there's a change this year because we've been Kennebec Neighbors between MSAD11,
Yep.
RSU2, and Winthrop.
So for prior to my arrival in 2018-19, in Winthrop, RSU2 was contributing maybe a little further back than that to Winthrop. And they had stopped. And so when I started in Winthrop, there was, I live in Monmouth, so there was community interest. And they are between us and around us, kind of. We see Monmouth students, we see in Winthrop primarily, and we see Farmingdale and Hollowell residents in our program. So for 3 years, we've collaborated with them in that they have provided funding for adult ed. They were at 35,000, decreased that funding, and this year they are going into next year, are not going to fund. So they've provided for 3 years to the program that they're not going to. The numbers of students has been steady for the last couple of years, 4 or 5 from that area. It's a hard thing to nail down sometimes, as we do have students move or learners who who come to us from those programs aren't necessarily residents in those areas anymore. So So they've decided that in the current budget situation, they're not going to continue to support. Now, given that we have had 3 years of their support, that has allowed us to, because our subsidy works on reimbursement, we have actually increased our state subsidy because the last 3 years we've had a little bit more money to spend. And the reimbursement model caps us based on how much communities put in. So our cap went up a little and we spent a little bit more, and so our subsidy went up a little bit more. So that will continue for the next couple of years based on their participation. After that, we'll probably be looking again at similar subsidy closer to the $50,000. But again, we haven't seen an increase in a couple of years in any funding for adult ed, and the bill that is proposed also proposes an additional $500,000 for the support across the state, which could, small amounts of money make a big deal with small programs. So we can anticipate there might be some offset there too, or they might actually fund us because we are only funded 50, we spend anywhere in my time between 50 and 60% of what is legislated as supposed to be funded. So, which is why we have that cap piece. So we are not going to have RSU2 participate. However, because we have an enrollment strategy, we will have students that continue to come from those areas. It does make sense to continue to talk to students, 16 to 20-year-olds who are dropping out over there or having difficulties. I've done that since I started, even when they weren't contributing. Continue to do that because it's going to be to our benefit in terms of the enrollment and how it counts over the years, over the year. So, I mean, it's my communities that are not community I live in that is not participating, so I'm saddened by that. But I also do understand some of the financial challenges that are coming forward.
And then the only other piece that I wonder, Josh, is can you provide the board members here with an idea about the number of 16 to 20-year-olds that we're servicing through
Yes.
our adult ed program?
Yeah.
And then beyond that, learners of
Yeah,
different
so
years.
it varies each year. It actually kind of does do a little wave, like up and down. Obviously with COVID, we saw an up and then a little down, and then it was still up. Last year, the count for the 16 to 20-year-olds for Kennebec neighbors, so us in combination with Winthrop, was 36. So 36 as a count over the course of a year. The way they're counting it, this is all new, is in 6-month periods. So if you are a learner, you're 19 years old, you come in the first 6 months of the calendar year, and you work with us at least 12 hours in that time, you are under a period of participation, you count. You count federally in some of the reports they do, and you count towards this. If you're with us again in the second 6 months of the year for that 12 hours, you count again. If I could have 20 in the first part of the year, total as a count for the first 6 months, and then have 10 in the next part of the year. Some of them could overlap, some of them could be new. But it all comes down to whether they have that period of participation with us, and it's based, they won't lapse out if they're 21. So if they're 20 when they start in May and they're still with us, it's gonna still count them into the, in the next semester if they're still with us in like September or October. So we had a count of 36 between the two programs last year. And that is, so the total amount they've decided was about $2,000 account, a student. And that is, that came up to an amount of $72,000 for this upcoming year. 35% of that is in Winthrop, the other is here, and so that's the 46 or 48,000, I can't remember, somewhere from 46 or 48. That's in under revenue for the 16 to 20 year olds. So that is where we are getting that money this year, and we anticipate next year that my target would be that we try to have a target of about 20, at least 20, 16 to 20 year olds. There are plenty of them. There's roughly 10% that don't graduate in the state. You know, it's a pretty good graduation rate, but there's still a good number out there. And they're shifting around all the time usually. So that 20, that would be a steady income of around 40,000 if the state maintains the current arrangement, which they just did in a week. So kind of, yeah.
What happens to someone that was in and out, they're getting close to graduation and they wanna come back at 23? What do you?
We come back. We serve them too. So I didn't talk about the other students. We don't turn away other students that come to us. We have, in fact, it's quite a number of times in my experience here and in Winthrop. We get folks who drop out at 16, 17 from any number of places. And they come into us because mom or dad or guardian is like, yeah, you have to finish up. And they're there for a little while and then they're gone. And then they come back later. They come back to us or one of about 60 programs in the state, small to large. And then we still see folks ranging up to folks in their 50s and 60s and 70s, even not as often, but we have folks from all age ranges. So they still come in. We just don't get this enrollment-based funding for them. But we still service them just as we would any other.
How are they funded?
That would, so all of it goes into the same, so we get the state subsidy, which is the reimbursement model. So what we expend in this year, a percentage of that we're eligible to get paid back in 3 years. And so that standard subsidy model is how we facilitate the program, and we have local funds that we use to support those programs. So.
Any other questions for Josh about adult ed? How has enrollment been overall?
So we talked about this in the budget meeting where, for our high school completion and primarily what I'd call college and career transitions, which is basically support to people who might also be in high school. But, the total is about, I think it's 56. We just did an intake today, so which happens, we do them all year. So it's anywhere 56 to 60. After COVID, we were up around 90 folks. The hard part of that is that some of them are far more involved than others in kind of the nature of our our learners. Sometimes 1 week you might come in and it looks like I got 4 or 5 student learners there, and then the next week you come in and it looks like our teachers can't keep up with everybody that's in the room. But life happens for folks, and so a number of our folks do have families or other responsibilities. All of them, even the 16 to 20 year olds, have jobs or really want a job when they come start with us. So create some. So that 50 to 60, I think, is where we usually fall, 50s and 60s consistently.
And just looking specifically at that 16 to 20 population was
So that's where I came up with, you know, that target of kind of trying to hit 20 in a year.
And I think currently, we had talked about, was it 16 to 20-year-olds we had?
I feel like it was just over 10. I thought it was 11. I can double check that if, no, yes, but we are, for the first part, yeah, so we're in the second half of the year. So yeah, you're right, because the 11 or 12 that I'm saying is probably all of them, and there are a few over in Winford. So if we're talking just here, I think that's right, 7 or 8 was the number. But I think that, you know, that's what I base my look back a couple years that I can and say, you know, about based on that, how they're calculating and these students, you know, what would be a reasonable target? It's like, if I had 10 each 6-month period, that would probably be about what we've done consistently, kind of looking at COVID as an outlier, because we had lots of folks that way, so.
Yes, Jeff?
No, and Andrea, this probably is a question, you can, on page 1, line 5, the health insurance for the administrative assistant, that increased by a considerable amount.
It's because the split between the enrichment, and if you look, you will see part of her. She should be, the other half of her should be on, so you see a huge decrease in line 53 on page 4 of 5,000. So it's just, so with our staff members, so let's say I have I'm trying to think of a good example. So let's say a speech person, and the speech person services, I know this, I'm gonna take it out of context with adult ed because it will be easier. The speech person services 5 schools. So last year they spent 10% of their, 20% of their time at each of the schools, right? Then this year, their percentage at each school changes, so it skews benefits. So even though the benefits overall, if, like, say, it was this year's budget would only increase 11, what did we say, 8%? It would be different depending upon how those percentages changed from year to year. I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but it's based on the percentage of time. So in this particular case, we have 2 administrative assistants, and next year we're looking at reducing that. We are reducing our evening one, and our day administrative assistant will be spending more time in enrichment. So that's causing her benefits to skew.
Is that all tracked by timesheets, number of hours?
In my system, in the budgeting accounting system, and then in payroll, we actually put in where they are and the percentage in each building, for lack of, I'd have to go into earnings codes, but yes.
Yeah, I
So
don't know.
it's tracked on the back end.
Okay.
Yes.
You answered.
Yep. Yep, sorry.
I don't want to dig any.
Gets very complicated, but if you ever want to see Jeff, my door is open. If you want to come in and take a peek at the accounting system, I'd be happy to show
You get so sick of
you.
me, you throw me out of the
Nah, that's not possible.
window. I have another question on supplies in item 26. Get an 80% increase of $1,600. Any particular cost for that? Page 1,
6.
line 26.
Okay, I'm just gonna pull up. Yeah, so I am anticipating no grant funding. And in those grants, and it's also true, I think we talked about a little bit professional development. In those grants, I was able to do a whole. It's just a little, and I'm not gonna be, so this is kind of a corresponding, it's not dollar for dollar, but it is an increase anticipating that we won't be able to do some of those.
You suspect you're gonna need to have that.
Yeah.
Because of loss of funding from another source.
Yes, so trying to balance it all out and still have what we need.
Okay.
Other questions?
Maybe you already said, but what would, the printing expenses went up? Are we finding the benefit of printing and mailing still?
So I actually, my, initial proposal, on this, we are printing a little differently. We're printing locally. We're not doing the glossy mailing. We also experienced some really significant issues with, US Postal doing bulk mailing. Like 2 years in Monmouth, I didn't get a catalog that got mailed. So it was really, so we're doing a first class mailing, so that's a little bit. But we're also doing 3 catalogs to fewer people. So we did that for the first time this year. So we share those expenses. So I feel like we've this is kind of based on what we've done this year. It may get a little different. But we're, this is the first year we've done this. To try to do it a little differently so that it doesn't go away. I mean, we were sending out at one point close to 20,000 catalogs, and less than 3%. Like if every registration that we had came from the catalog, it would have been less than 3% of that. Now, print is that way, right? Like it is not good. But you still want to be like, based on what I've come to understand, over 6% at least. We weren't even close. So we're trying it differently. We're doing more around 1,000. We're getting a lot more communication with people about getting on the list, sending it out to a lot of people electronically, which they're fine with, trying to improve the social media presence that we have so that they can get it that way, stuff like that. So, yeah, but this is, I actually started off with way more in there. And we cut that after.
Anything else? Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Is it okay to switch?
Sorry, before we move forward, we are not going to revisit the adult ed budget again. We would like for the finance committee to make a recommendation to the board to approve if you so choose. If there's something else you want us to do with adult ed, let us know, but if the finance committee is fine, we would like to set this budget and move it along to the full board for consideration.
Can I ask one more question? You mentioned the local appropriation has been the same. How long has it been the same?
I
It's
don't.
been at least 7 years.
Longer than that.
I think it's 8, but I'm positive about 7.
So
So
we always kind of balance off, just expecting that amount?
We use a
or-
little bit of his, there's a little bit, I mentioned a little bit of adult ed unallocated fund balance so that we're not rocking the locals in both the local budget and in the adult ed budget. And Josh mentioned that us doing so impacts his subsidy negatively. So it's kind of trying to find that balance, where we're able to fund the program, but we're not increasing it much beyond the local budget. So I don't know that I think we try.
Yeah.
I think we try.
Anyone else, any other questions? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we pass this budget on to the board.
Second. Second from Joanne. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor?
oh,
If,
I'm not on the committee.
oh, only finance vote, please. Perfect. Thank you, Janelle.
Then we are hoping to shift our MSAD11 26-27 budget to the next.
Absolutely. So next, we're gonna just go to letter C on the agenda. And will we be coming back to?
We will.
Okay, so we're gonna do the regular budget.
Katie and I are gonna tag team.
I love tech.
People think that because I do most of the talking and walking through the legal paperwork that I'm responsible for the budget. But just as a refresher, this budget process started back in November with our schools and with me starting to budget salaries and people. The schools and the department heads put their budgets together in the months of December and January. In February, I kind of pulled it all together at the end of February, at the beginning of March. Katie, myself, and administrators met to review every single budget individually and went through and made changes to those budgets and cuts.
Sometimes multiple times.
Sometimes multiple times, that's true. Regarding staff decisions, those are basically made between Katie and building administrators. My input is financial, letting her know what those cuts would look like. So it's been a definite team thing. While we don't always agree on the things that are being proposed, it's definitely a team effort. So I just wanted to go over that. To let everyone know how we go through this process. It's a long budget process. I know that we're in April. It seems like I always live in budget and it's just the world we live in, or just the world I live in. So here we are. As of today, the budget that we are bringing forward to you for consideration is an increase of 2.14% or $703,177.16. What that looks like on the worksheet, I'm going to try to change the page for the people at home so they can see what we're looking at. Have things hidden and oops. So, oops, here we go. Here's the fun part. So this is the worksheet that we share at every single budget meeting. And what it includes at the bottom is the increase to the locals. So while our budget only increased by $703,000, the increase to locals that is being proposed with this budget is $996,977.97, or an increase overall to the 4 communities of 7.11%. And the reason for that is the decrease in subsidy. If we had seen an increase in our subsidy that aligned with the increase in our budget, we would not be in this fix. Our subsidy decreased by approximately $210,000. So that's what we're dealing with. So not only are we making up, or not only are the locals making up for the increase, they're also making up for the reduction in the state subsidy. So that is what we are looking at. I am going to hand it off to Katie to go over the most recent cuts. And I'm going to try to share. Yes.
Before you go there.
Absolutely.
The 213,000.
The 210,000?
To 210,000, is that because of a declining enrollment?
So there are two things that affect the 8279. It's driven by two things. It's driven by enrollment. And as we've discussed numerous times, our enrollment as well as enrollments throughout the state are on the decline. Our enrollment decreased from last year by approximately 100 students. The other thing that is against almost every district in the state is the state valuation. So the state sets a valuation for every single community. And it's different from the valuation that communities set at the local city or town office. It's the state, the Department of Revenue sees itself as the great equalizer, trying to balance out all of those inequities in assessment between all of the communities in the state. As a result, the ED 279, which is a state funding formula, it uses the state valuation. So the state sees the ED 279, the increase in valuation, as an increase in ability to pay. And as we have discussed here numerous times, because somebody's home valuation increases, does not mean that anyone is able to pay additional taxes. They are not related. It's just numbers. And what has been killing us is that since COVID, The state valuation has been increasing anywhere between 15 and 20% per year. And it's a problem because obviously, like I said, it's how our funding formula is based. So that is one of the big cost drivers, valuation. The state is currently looking and is looking at redoing parts of the funding formula. I don't think they are addressing the valuation issue that I just spoke of. We will see what it means for us and whether this legislature passes it. Honestly, I don't think it can be any worse than what we have, but again, there will be winners and losers. There are in every budget year. It just so happens that this year and last year and the year before, we seem to have been losers. So anyway, I don't know if I answered your question.
I did. I just
go
think
on
that
and
I do think there's a direct correlation between declining enrollment and how much subsidy we get. And I think we need to just spell that out plain.
Yeah.
And that it's never in one building. It's across the district. So it's hard to make adjustments for an entire district when the adjustments are hard to make. Jeff, did you have something?
Katie, I mean, do we have a legislative liaison for the school districts? Are we aware that, are they trying to address in this session the evaluation process?
Yes.
Yes.
There is a piece of legislation
Yes,
that they're looking at now.
yes.
Okay.
That's that
Any
whole,
feedback on possible results?
not yet. I mean, what we've heard, what's been highly publicized is the MEPRI study, the University of Maine Presque Isle Research Institute that partners with the department to figure out where there's leverage to improve the formula in a way that doesn't result in an inequity or an unbalanced winners and losers, as Andrea says. And we heard speculation around $400,000.
I think they had told us that if they were looking at the funding formula based on the current year, I think we would have received an additional 400,000. But there are a lot of things in play. There's also a committee who is a separate committee from the 8279 that is looking at property taxes in general around the state. I've been kind of watching those meetings. I haven't seen where they are, but that's another discussion that is going on at the same time because property taxes throughout the state are obviously an issue. Anyway.
Well, thanks.
Welcome. All right, ready for this?
You go. I've got it up. I'll let you.
Oh, thank you.
You are
Okay.
welcome.
So what you see should look familiar. We're going to go through the budget cuts by expenditure article, just the differences between last week and this week. So you are going to see, remember in the world of finance, when you see a hyphen or a minus, it actually means an increase. So we have coming out of Article 1, regular instruction, we actually have an increase transitioning two current district ed tech 1s to ed tech 3s. We'll talk more about that position, and our administrative team is prepared to talk about the specific position changes that are reflected, both reductions and additions tonight. So back to Article 1, we have the transition of two district ed techs from ed tech 1 positions to ed tech 3 positions as part of MTSS behavior at the elementary level. And you're seeing that as an increase despite the minus sign of $7,685.65. And you're seeing the health insurance. Remember that we had built in what percentage?
We originally started with 14%.
14%, and then we knew, we were informed that the high would be no higher than 11.5. And then we found out, of course, over the weekend or last Friday that we came in at 8.84%. And so the reduction there of $49,596 is that decrease between the high end of insurance and the 8.84%. Moving on to Article 2, special education, main care seed, we have a reduction of 50,000. We're going to come back to all things main care seed. We have Sarah here tonight. Andrea certainly can speak to. We've talked a lot about main care seed and we'll talk about why we feel confident in the reduction, confident at, might be generous. We get information moment to moment, and so that really is variable. We are erring on the side of caution, and so at this time, we feel confident with the $50,000 reduction to special education for main care seed. We have reduced our monies intended for special purpose private school placements by $69,840. And again, you can see that the special education staff under Article 2, the reduction in the health insurance is reflected there. Have a great concert. Article 3, you can see no change there. Article 4, other instruction, the health insurance reduction is reflected there, and you're going to see 2 increases. We increased the stipend to the varsity club that was board approved in the amount of $694.22. We also added a JV softball stipend in the amount of $3,177.72. However, we were able to reduce athletic supplies and uniforms by $14,445 for a total, when you factor in the additions, of $10,957.06. Joanne?
I thought the JV softball was being covered by donations and
For this year. So we are budgeting for next year. Sorry.
Article 5, student and staff support. We have that health insurance reduction reflected in the amount of $10,932. And we found curriculum software that we were able to remove from the budget. And that was $22,998.75 for a total reduction in Article 5 of $33,930.75. For Article 6, system administration, all you see there is that health insurance reduction for $2,484. Article 7, school administration, also just seeing that insurance reduction for $6,126. In Article 8, transportation, we have our special purpose private school transportation that we reduced with some confidence by $12,302.40. And you can see the health insurance reduction there reflected as $5,670. In Article 9, for facilities and maintenance, we have staff reduction, which we will talk about when we talk specifically about positions. No, we will not. Actually, the staff reduction at facilities actually impacts this office. We've reduced from 4 hours daily to 2 hours of daily custodial services here. And so that amounts to a reduction of $13,362.13. We have our school revolving renovation fund annual lease payment. We talked about that during the board meeting last week. That would reduce by $16,000. Remember, that is putting money aside to be able to pay off that payment. We have maintenance projects and quote adjustments. Gabe has done a little bit of finagling and trying to figure out which projects he can prioritize and get done now, which is impacting our plan for projects next year. And so you see a reduction of $17,100 there. And the health insurance reduction in the amount of $6,684 from employees covered under facilities maintenance. And that brings us to a total reduction of $703,000, $177.16.
I just wanted to mention that the reduction in the special purpose private school placement and transportation is a reduction for one student who is going to be kept where they are this year. So we were confident in removing that. So it's just one student.
Thank you. I can see that Sarah
Sorry.
stepped out for just a moment. if you're comfortable, we'll move on to proposed staff reductions by expenditure article, keeping in mind that we will circle back to that main seed, a main care seed for any questions. That sound okay?
I think so.
All right. So in Article 1, we have a classroom instructor at,
Can we, since this is the first time that
Oh.
we've seen this, can we just go over the gray
Yes.
bar?
yes, so.
Sorry.
All right, all the bells and whistles. Andrea has prepared this document to show, looking across that gray bar at the top of the page, we're looking at Article 1 being regular instruction. We're looking at the percentage of the budget that this article consists of, being 39.5% of the total budget. The total amount in Article 1 being $13,372,141.40. Reflected within Article 1, we have 139 full-time equivalent staff members. Within Article 1, $12,768,062.45 is covering salary and benefits for the staff members that fall in under Article 1. And within Article 1 alone, that reflects 37.7% of the 39.5%. That is Article 1. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay.
The gray bars do not correlate with the expenditure articles here.
No, it's
Okay.
just a snapshot of staffing and the number of staff members and the cost, the staff costs in each of the expenditure articles and what we're removing. But I just wanted to give you a snapshot of basically how many people are funded by that expenditure article. And then you see below how many we're proposing removing.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so within Article 1, regular instruction, what we have, much of this will sound familiar to you. We have a classroom teaching position at our middle school for a reduction of $67,811.42. We have a reduction of a teacher at the high school in the amount of $104,501.25. That is due to, we're actually going to reduce that position by attrition. That's a retirement. We are looking to reclassify ed techs, 2 ed tech positions from ed tech 3s to ed tech 2s, which is a reduction of $4,428.44. We have 2 elementary positions, both classroom teaching positions, one at $65,120.58, one at $76,041.02. Those actually say vacancy retirement. Those are due to enrollment at the elementary level. We have 0.5 of an instructional support and 0.5 assistant principal, which is reflected in another article. The instructional support, half of that one full-time position is $51,965.73. And we have a learning lab ed tech. The position has remained unfilled and since early this school year, and that is a reduction of $49,871.82.
Just, the only thing I'm going to say is the figures that you see in front of you are a combination of salary and benefits. I don't want anyone to think that's just salary.
I do have a question about the ed tech reclassifications. The responsibility is going to be less?
Yes, they will not change. The responsibilities will not change. I wonder, we have a responsibility to stick to the expectations within the job descriptions for ed tech 1s, ed tech 2s, ed tech 3, ed tech
threes. And currently our ed tech threes are in the classroom at all times with students under the direct supervision of the classroom teacher in our pre-K program. And we will fall well within the expectations of the ed tech 2 by reducing from the 3 to the 2
Okay,
without a change in roles and responsibilities
Okay.
as is currently happening.
thank you.
You're welcome.
There's never an instance where the teacher, there isn't a full-time instructor in the classroom. And an ed tech 3 is not doing the teaching.
Not directly responsible for doing the teaching without the teacher.
But the teacher's physically there. Correct.
This doesn't correlate in any way with the ed tech 1s that we are reclassifying to ed tech 3s.
That's right. Totally,
Completely
this is totally
different.
separate. Yeah, yeah. Administrators, please feel free. We did hear last week and we've talked as a team about if there's an impact or something that you want to make sure that the board is aware of, please feel free to chime in. Molly?
So a middle school instructor, we're looking to, that's not an open position, that is simply a reduction.
That is a reduction, that's correct.
Based on
Yeah.
enrollment numbers or based on?
It is not based on enrollment. Dr. Sims, do you want to speak to the change? You usually are so excited to come to the podium,
Anything
so.
anybody wants. So the ed tech 3 position, we had an ed tech that was in the role for quite a few years, who got their teaching license and shifted into one of our teaching positions this year. And so the role just remained open for the year. Multiple layers of hiring went through, but for whatever reasons, just we were never able to fully fill it. And so it is just kind of sitting there. We also shifted our model for our learning lab this year. It's not all small group work. They are doing some pushing out. And so it's given us an opportunity to kind of revamp the supports and push in and have a model of collaborative teaching where multiple teachers are in the same room to break kids down into smaller groups. So it's actually been very successful. So we have kind of a hybrid model now. And so the ed tech 3 position isn't necessarily as needed as it was in the past when the kids were all coming into the learning lab all day.
And the classroom instructor position is not because of declining enrollment. That really was a result of, let's look harder at positions and how can we be creative about meeting the needs of students and structuring departments or teams to make sure that we continue to provide an excellent educational experience for students. And so that is a reduction. Can you
Yeah, I
speak
mean,
to
and it's
that?
definitely, there's an impact, right? Our social studies teachers have already been living this for the last 2 years. I know they sent some letters. It definitely, their classes are sitting at 22 or higher, so they have more students than the other teachers because there's less social studies teachers across the entire building. Most of them are teaching multiple grade levels as well to be able to fill the need. So that creates a little bit of a difference, and that's why some of the classes, it does pigeonhole us a little bit into where we can offer certain layers for kids, because we only have 1 7th grade this block versus 2 on a different block, right? Depending. Class sizes go up, instruction and your ability to support kids in their various needs certainly goes down, right? That becomes harder when you're one person with 22, 23 kids versus one person with 17 to 19. There's a huge difference there, so there's definitely an impact. Like I said, our social studies teachers have been sort of living this. They are doing more content prep than a lot of the other staff. They have a higher student to teacher ratio, which will be the same with this position as well where we cut. And so there's definitely an impact. You know, we always do what we can to make the best choices for our kiddos. So we will always make it work. But there's definitely an impact to our kids and to our staff as well.
So what is your class size, it was 22 or it will be 22?
So with this
The
reduction,
max.
it's gonna be in one of our content areas, and so it will take the classes from, and each grade level is different, right, with the numbers. But it will probably push these particular classes for all teachers somewhere between 22 to 24 at all times, at all class levels. Which is what our social studies teachers are dealing with, whereas right now our math, literacy and our science teachers still have some variation in class sizes that range from 19, they might have a couple one with 17, right? So it's a little bit more manageable on those layers. Our rooms are sort of awkward, so it's interesting to kind of fit kids in there. They only fit so many desks, so we've gotten creative with tables in those spaces and other sorts of fun things like stools and you do, like I said, you make it work, right? And you make it fun. But there are definitely impacts to that. Like I said, our social studies team has been dealing with it, and this cut will certainly make another one of our content areas feel kind of live what they've been living the last 2 years.
Which content area is the one with the reduction?
It is going to wind up being science.
I'm concerned because one of our largest classes right now is in 6th grade and has 2 more years to travel through the middle school. It might have a smaller grade in 5th, but it looks like we rebound again in 3rd and 4th in numbers right now. So reducing a position in our middle school when some of our largest class sizes are preparing to move through it, that position concerns me.
Well, we're also talking about finding ways to beginning the budget process sooner next year to discussing consolidation and finding ways to reduce our expenses. So in hopes that maybe when that class passes through, that we'll have found a way to consolidate or found a way to reduce our expenses so that we're able to increase where it's needed. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just, what are our class policy limits?
I'm trying to find that right now, man.
They range from 14 to 26 with the recommended being around 18 to 23.
Our class size
Max is 26.
range in middle school is 18 to 25 with a recommendation of 22. At the grades 6 through 8, we have averages, our classes run between 18 and 21 now with an impact as Sarah described.
22 to 26, you said? So our lowest, our small classes would be 22 students.
Yeah, and it does shift our English and math numbers as well. When you have one less teacher, it will push all of the classes up, but especially in that particular content area.
So will it result in shared grade teaching similar to social studies? Or, I mean,
Yep,
2 years
we will
ago,
have
they were-
science, so we will have several science teachers who now have to teach multiple grade levels.
That's similar to the high school, I would think too. No,
I can talk about ours when you're ready. It's similar.
So the classroom instructors in the elementary, those are vacancies, those are openings that we have smaller or lower enrollment and.
Based on projected enrollment, we will not have the need for the additional classes. That's the reduction. Those are both at the kindergarten level, based on the number of incoming kindergarten students.
We're still kind of waiting for our enrollment to bottom out. It has not bottomed out yet, Molly. Which, again, is affecting our funding formula.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, last spring, we had an unexpected boom and a request to increase by 1 kindergarten teacher, and that has happened.
But
From
this
time
does
to
not
time.
include, is this cutting that position or was that position?
That is
Okay,
one. Yep.
okay.
Mhm.
I was afraid that wasn't in this budget and, okay. Yeah. I think at a previous meeting, you mentioned something about offering choice. Is that?
Yeah, that work, there was an edit made to our open enrollment policy. Currently, our open enrollment policy states that due to overcrowding, families can request and be granted permission to transport to another school. If grade level sizes, again, lead to overcrowding. There was language that I added to the policy, which included non-voluntary transfer, as we had talked about, a way to have some sort of control over how big a group can grow. Because the financial implication is that, and board policy in the class size policy states that if we have a group that, a grade level that expands beyond class size range, then there would be consultation between the building administrator and the superintendent, and there would be a solution, which might be, hiring support staff. It might be adding an additional teacher. Those are certainly options that we've used in the past as a school district. And another option could be that it is the superintendent's discretion in collaboration with the building principal, that if we have, let's say we have 23 second graders in a building, and a family with a second grader moves in, you might decide as a system that we say, we're really full in this second grade classroom, and we would transport you to a second grade school, a school with second grade with lower numbers. Some of the feedback from the policy committee was, I don't think that our community is going to support that. And that very well could be the case. It is the opposite of the foundation of having a community with community schools, right? If we then become a system where we're transporting students out of their home community and across the district to attend school. However, and like it or not like it, what we're really tasked with, it's unlike, reductions in positions. What we are tasked with is finding reasonable solutions to really hard challenges. And that could be one that the board opts for. So that you will notice that there are no additional elementary reductions. And the reason is because the administrative team stands by our numbers being reasonable where they are, with space to grow. And so the proposal really is through policy, do we want to opt for, do you as a board want to endorse being able to, I'm trying to find another word, from control the size of that group in order to be as effective as possible with the positions that are existing and meeting the needs of all of our students. Does that answer your question, Molly? Okay.
But typically when we're outside of the board policy for enrollment, it's because it's more often that we're on the low side than on the high side. So oftentimes our classes are much lower than what the school board policy recommendation is. So that is what we're finding.
And we have on average about a class size of about 16 students, across our at the elementary level. So across our 4 buildings, we have class sizes, an average class size of between 14.8 and 18.1. And you've heard our middle school class sizes, and our high school class sizes range from, I will just go department by department. Math, we have an average class size of 15.6. ELA, average class size of 18. Science, an average class size of 16.8. Social studies, an average class size of 15.9 students. World language, an average class size of 13. Visual and performing arts, an average class size of 19. Health and wellness, an average class size of 17 students. Finance and career, average class size of 16 students. It is worth noting that world language is particularly low with 13 students. If we were to reduce a teacher in world language, it shifts class sizes to an average of 21 with 3 classes. We cap those classes at 26, which means we would turn students away. And career, finance, career, a loss of social studies teacher shifts class sizes to an average of 18.36 students.
About
So,
math.
sorry, that was noted next to the wrong. In social studies, the current class size average of 15.9 students, reducing by one social studies teacher at the high school, shifts class sizes to an average of 18.36 students. Sorry about that.
Well within policy.
I'm sorry, did you explain the same for the science?
Math.
Math was 15.5.
Math 15.6, science 16.8.
But were we making a change this year that would change the average class, or were those just high school numbers?
Those were just high school
Okay,
numbers.
right.
All of those by specific department were high school numbers.
Okay.
With the reduction of the science teacher, are there going to be opportunities lost because you just have too big a class to do experiments or things that you might be able to do with smaller group size? Are we gonna be looking more at tech and just book learning, or?
I don't wanna brag, but I have some of the most amazing science teachers ever, who are completely hands-on learning. In fact, I don't even think one of them uses a textbook. They use interactive science notebooks, the labs, they're doing all sorts of interesting hands-on engagement. They work together collaboratively, to align their curriculum components, with our coaches at times. So I don't think that we're gonna see a loss of any of that instructional or the labs. They're very good at using the group work sort of model, and then building that sort of leadership quality in the kids through that group work. So I think that they're gonna be able to manage that. I do think it is difficult when you're doing labs sometimes with large groups. Like I'm trying to imagine the 8th grade, they just did an open flame with heat transference. That gives me a panic attack a little bit, having 22 kids in a room like that. But I know that they're very good at going over the safety rules too, and I have full confidence that they'll continue to be able to offer the curriculum that they've been providing so far.
Other
What
questions
is,
before we move through these?
yeah, the classroom instructor, the impact for the high school?
So we're looking at social studies as the impact area, and that would be a reduction of one staff member who's currently filling that role. Like Katie said, the class sizes will increase to the average of around 18. But the biggest impact to class sizes are in our freshman world cultures classes. Those will move from around like 16, 17 to about 21. And US history at 21 as well. And the consideration there, Gabe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure those rooms fit like 22 desks, so it'll be a little bit tighter, but it is certainly within the class size policy. Like Sarah said, the impacts to the students it's difficult to have more students in the class with one teacher. They're spread a little more thin. The teacher course load will increase to probably teaching 6 classes, where typically across the building you teach 5. To reduce that, I would have, to keep it, equitable with the rest of the building, I would have to keep the class sizes at the higher capacity. But that would still have at least 2.5 of them teaching a 6 course load. And if we wanted to get everyone to a 5 course load, we'd have to look at reducing electives. But with this current plan, we can fit all current classes and all electives with the higher class size numbers. And then the other consideration is we have our department level PLCs. So if all staff are teaching 6, to get Power School to finagle that to work is a lot trickier. So it's an unknown if that would work, which would in fact affect their planning time as a department potentially. But certainly within the class size policies, all classes can be covered. But the workload increases a little bit for staff, and they are serving more students at the higher class size.
So what is PLC?
It's like their department planning time, so it's
Okay.
when they're working on like curriculum, department goals, reviewing data, and the opportunity culture work.
Lauren, what percentage of your teachers are currently teaching 6 classes? Do you know? off the top of your head?
It's hard to say right now on our current projections. I have some that will voluntarily teach 6 if there's an elective they're really passionate about. But we really across the board, I don't even have one per department. I have them in small spots. So I think next year off the top of my head, I would have probably, not counting social studies, 3, 4 that would be at 6 classes, either voluntarily or to fit all the classes.
Is there compensation for teaching a sixth?
There's not, but what we past practice has been, if it's involuntary, like I have to fit these sections and we don't have a choice, I try to take away their morning or lunch duty to relieve some of that burden. But with the whole department, I don't think I can relieve all of them of a duty and still manage what we need to manage.
You mentioned an impact to the world language. Is that part of this instructor position as well?
No, we're
It
just,
is not. It was just in response to an average size that is under class size policy.
If you could just refresh my memory in terms of world languages, how many years of a world language are high schoolers required to take?
they're required to take 1, but we recommend more because to be competitive on your college application, I'm a former world language teacher, it looks better to have more than 1, but graduation requirement is 1. But we have a wonderful world language department and we have students that continue all 4 years. And next year, like in our higher levels, we have some very strong class sizes of like 18 in Spanish 4, 16 in Latin 4. And that's the highest level you can go, 16 in French 4. So our numbers are very strong, all through 4 levels, which is a testament to our teachers for sure.
Is there an impact on the electives that will be offered by reducing a social studies teacher?
Not if if some of them are gonna teach 6. If we were to try to get a 5 course load across the department for all, then yeah, we would have to reduce a couple electives. And the elective numbers are pretty strong right now with 38 for current events, 51 for intro to psychology, 15 for outbreak, which is a new one, and 31 for conspiracy theories and oddity. There's some pretty cool electives in social studies. And the kids would have to shift elsewhere to other electives in the building if that happened.
The conspiracy theories one, is that to how to be critical thinkers when you're
So you have Amber right here, who teaches.
Okay, Amber.
Well,
How to create a conspiracy theory.
It's very cool.
Also talk about that. Yes, so we look at obviously conspiracy theories that are around not just this country, but in other countries as well. How they came to be, like the birds aren't real, they're government spies, literally a kid wrote it on a sign and now people believe it. But yes, today it's definitely important for kids to realize what they're seeing, people are doing on purpose. And trying to differentiate between really what is reality and what is just making people money. So, yeah,
getting clicks.
yes, exactly. So it just makes them look at the world differently.
Which they need to do.
I would love to take one of your classes, Amber. I'm sure they are very interesting.
Can we audit?
I wish.
Yes, actually, anytime.
I would love that. Jeff, did you have something?
Okay.
She would love it. though.
Joking.
If you
I would
change
love
it,
it.
I would love it.
There we go. No, thank you.
I will come back to
Jeff had a
proposed staff
question, I think.
reductions. Oh,
No, just which article are we on now?
we are about to jump into Article 2.
Okay.
All right, so in Article 2, which is 19, Article 2, special education, it is 19.1% of our total budget. The article totals $6,477,346.96. There are 54.8 full-time equivalent positions in Article 2, special education. Salary and benefits total $4,271,943.10, which is 12.6% of this total article. So we have 2 unfilled special education positions. They have been unfilled for quite a while. We had not been able to fill them. And so those are positions that we've discussed in the past, and there's no change there for a total reduction of $179,289.56. We'll skip over career and technical because that is 0 for us. Sorry, thought you were
No.
chiming in.
No, sorry.
Article 4, other instruction is 2.5% of our budget, of our total budget. It is $849,829.99. There are 86 positions, mostly coaching.
1 FTE, which is your athletic director.
Thank
The
you.
remainder of them are coaching positions.
I did know that. Thank you.
Good job.
Salary and benefits, total $472,188.41, which is 1.4% of the
Budget.
total article.
Budget.
True, and budget. Article 5, students and staff, we have, which is 10% of the total budget, $3,400,536.84. There are 29 full-time equivalent positions tucked into Article 4. $2,791,655.77 cover salaries and benefits for those staff members in Article 5. And this, the salary and benefits are 8.2% of the total cost of the article. The position reductions that we have, we've discussed. They include the guidance position, the guidance counselor position at the middle school, which it will be vacated due to retirement. The instructional coach position, which will be vacated due to retirement, and the stipend that the instructional coach was receiving. And with the coach retiring, the stipend also is reduced. So we have a total there. Those totals listed include salary and benefits, and the total reduction is $233,639.05.
Can I just mention, oops, yeah, I will scroll, but I just wanted to mention that the stipend for the I want to say occupational therapy.
Instructional coach.
Thank you. It is for days beyond the teacher day and extended hours beyond the teacher day. So they have a longer day than teachers typically work, and they have a longer length school year than teachers typically work. So I wanted to point that out for the reason for that amount of a stipend. So sorry.
And as we've discussed before, the salary for the instructional coach is aligned to the salary scale for all teachers in the district. And so that is where that amount comes from. Molly?
It indicates it's an
OC. Yep. It's
Opportunity culture is the sort of the brand of the teacher leadership model that we've been using.
right.
So OC.
So is anyone moving into that position and not receiving a stipend? Not the instructional coach, but is that opportunity culture structure changing?
The structure is changing slightly. We are continuing with the teacher leadership model with shifts to what the model looks like in each of the buildings, as we had talked about. And I can't remember if it was during finance or the board meeting, but we're really in a position to make significant reductions without dismantling some of our some of those pieces in place that really exhibit who we are, what our values are as a system. Teacher leadership is one of them, and OC is our model for teacher leadership at this time. You will actually see that on the back of this page.
Just right now, we're anticipating some carryover for the unfilled positions this year. But if we cut them, we can't put them back in, correct?
That is correct.
It can, it would just increase our budget.
No,
Once the
I'm
budget
saying,
is set.
but next year, once the budget's set, it's not like we can increase that if we find all of a sudden we have this need to put back an instructional coach, if we have to put back a teacher in the classroom. Right now, if they're all unfilled, we would have that as the carryover for the next budget year. Is that correct?
Well, we added a kindergarten teacher that wasn't budgeted, right?
So that was funded from contingency. So if you remember, we have $150,000 contingency built in our budget. There's $50,000 in three different areas. There's $50,000 in regular instruction in the event of a situation just like the one that we had last summer where we thought we needed an additional kindergarten teacher. It's part of it sits there. An additional $50,000 sits in special ed contingency in the event or one of 2 or 3 students move in and we have to place them out of district. So there's $50,000 in contingency that sits there. The last $50,000 worth of contingency sits in facilities where stuff seems to always break. So we like to protect, no fault of Gabe's. Last night we had a fire, would that be a good word?
Yeah, we had a
at the high
motor
school?
that burnt and.
So, yeah, so there's always something going on. So there's a little bit of contingency money that sits in facilities. $50,000 doesn't even get you a teacher's salary. So there isn't really much in contingency. It's just enough to stop the bleeding or enough to say that we have something to put towards either a project or a placement or a teacher. So anyway.
My feeling is that if this budget goes through, that $840,000 of carryover that we have had historically is just not going to be there. It's not going to be there. And so we're going to draw down even faster and we're going to come down to nil even faster.
Which is why we need to really look for our next step to reduce our expenditures, and we've talked about that. So,
When you're talking about
And to keep
consolidation.
consolidate, that is exactly what I'm referring to,
And to keep our
consolidation.
positions in that aren't filled in the budget, unfilled, just falsely inflates, inflates the budget, which the downside to that is it falsely inflates the budget, which then increases the chances of it not passing on a what if.
Well, I was going to say that if we didn't have the carryover that we have, we would be having major increases and there wouldn't be anything to draw down on. And so my feeling is that if we keep it in the budget, even though the tax base might go up, we can say, hey, the only way that we're going to reduce this logically is if we do the consolidation. And we need to get started now. If we reduce it and people say, oh, gee, okay, this is bad, but it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, then they'll pass it, but we're going to have a problem if we have to use it. And we're already using over $2 million a year. And I just want to clarify that for everybody out there. We've been kicking the can down the road. But if we start saying, okay, we're going to cut this, there isn't going to be a carryover. There isn't. I mean, you take a look at these numbers, we're reducing it by about the amount of money that we would have for carryover. And as we're seeing, everything is stretched incredibly thin. And if we need to have a position back, $50,000 isn't going to do it. If we have someone that needs to go to a special purpose private school, $50,000 isn't going to do it in a long way. And we don't look at things like extracurriculars. I can see that $472,000 of it is salary and benefits out of $849,000, but what is that $300,000 above? Is that supplies? Is that equipment? Is that transportation? Should we be looking at things that are not instruction driven for the reduction. And then we just added on an expenditure in the budget, another $3,000 for JV softball. We keep adding things and they're great for our kids. But if we have to lose an elective in science or something else to balance the budget because we're cutting these positions, even if they're retirements, even if they're resignations, I think in the long run, I'm sorry, I think it's like educational malpractice. We're not focusing on the actual education needs of our students. And we want to bring people in like they're customers as opposed to what we're supposed to be doing, which is to provide an excellent education. And if you're stretching your wonderful teachers to the limit, at some point, and we've talked about this before, there's a breaking point, and we keep talking about behaviors. If you have a class size of 24 kids, it is likely that you're going to have some disruptors. And we really don't deal with that. We really don't. We make it the teacher's responsibility and we call it classroom management. I don't think we should be losing instructors. We need the people in the classroom. Just my feeling. If we don't fill the positions, well, then we have a carryover for next year. But I think
it's more important to keep the positions that we have filled than to maintain the unfilled positions. Because they are serving our students right now. They're not,
but why
Andrea has
can't
said
we
previously
fill the
that we should have
positions?
a zero-
Why can't we fill the
because
positions?
there are no people applying.
Why aren't they applying?
Because they're
There's a
not
shortage
applying.
of special ed
shortage
and
of special ed
education.
teachers.
We have,
Let's stay on the subject of the budget.
I don't think we're off subject of the budget right now.
Well-
she's not,
Yeah, I know, but.
I know we need to move forward, but this is
We
an
can't
important
understand
conversation
why
to have.
someone doesn't apply for a job.
Exactly.
That's not a.
We don't have that crystal ball.
That's
That's not.
Joanne, I think the flip side of the coin, and I don't know how in touch you are with the people that you represent, but I can tell you in my town, they're not gonna support a large budget. They're not. And so I'm sorry that the class size is gonna go up. I know what that means, been there, done that, but I'd rather, have a little larger class sizes and have a budget pass.
And my feeling is, on the flip side, that the focus should be on the instructional side of education and not sports teams and certain extracurriculars. That's my feeling. How many students are serviced?
By 2.5% of the budget.
and know that our goal is to strike a balance, is
But
to
we're not
strike a
cutting
balance.
anything.
And in order to bring as many opportunities to students as we can, we have a responsibility to effectively provide an education to all students. And we know the benefits of offering some of the programs and co-curriculars that we can offer. Philosophically, we have a wide range of beliefs about how much to invest in those programs. What we've tried to do with this budget, through some hard discussion, hard decision, hard proposed reductions, is strike that balance at this moment in time based on reduced funding, declining enrollment, operating 6 schools, and recognizing the tax burden in every one of our communities due to the increased property valuations. So I hear it, and we're all mindful of that.
And we're using our class size policy to guide all these decisions. We're
Trying to
not,
be as informed and
Absolutely.
equitable, recognizing that it's not apples to apples. We are
No.
one system, and the high school's puzzle of a schedule is radically different than the elementary, is different than the middle school structure, as is the developmental band for students at those ages. And this is us working together to strike a balance to do right by every student that comes to us, ready or not.
Angela, do you remember the state just released the list of positions that they were having a hard time filling across the state? Do you remember roughly how many positions were on that list? Guess.
Special ed is number one.
I would say science across the board, math across the board. World language in certain content, in certain languages, Latin, one of them for sure. But in certain languages is on that list. Interventionist is on that list. I mean, we get it every single year, August or September. It's growing. And the applicant pool is significantly less. I was in the field almost 30 years ago, and you went through 3 rounds of interviews and hundreds of applicants for every position. Sometimes we get a few.
We know that undergraduate programs are graduating fewer people going into the field. We're not alone. When I meet with local superintendents, they're asking, does anyone have a teacher for a world language? What are you doing about social worker? We are
There's
in
no
it
guidance.
as much
There's
as,
no food and consumer science, very little guidance, no food and consumer science. I mean, it just goes on and on.
In other words, Katie's right, it's not an MSAD11 problem,
No.
it's a state of Maine problem.
It's a
nationwide
it's a
problem.
nationwide
It's a
problem.
national problem.
Thank you.
So basically, you're saying that the science teacher that goes, or the history teachers that goes, should be snapped up by some other school district?
Joanne, that's not what I'm saying. What you're saying is that we should fill unfilled positions, and what I'm saying is they're unfilled because we can't fill them. We do not have people applying for the positions.
But we are losing several teachers, are we not, that are not?
We have removed positions that are unfilled. And then we had to go to the next round because the next request is the budget isn't low enough yet. So that's why we're trying to be super judicious about this. We are not taking this lightly by any means at all. We are losing sleep. Every one of us.
What you're saying, though, seems to be almost the opposite of what.
Move on.
Yeah, I think we need to move on.
Yeah.
Article 6, you'll see no proposed reductions. That is system administration. It is 3.2% of the total MSAD11 proposed budget. It's $1,088,839.08. There are 7 full-time equivalent positions in Article 6. Salary and benefits cover $758,860 $96. It's getting to be that time of night. And that is 2.2, the salary and benefits within system administration is 2.2% of that article.
Can I just add, system administration consists of the business office, the superintendent's office, as well as where the board's compensation lists. I just want people to understand that the number of staff members we have currently in the central office is the same number of staff members we had in 1994 when I was hired. There was a reduction a few years ago. We brought that position back. There was a reduction in around 2008. That position was brought back in 2023 due to capacity. So I just want people to be aware that we have had those same numbers for 32 years, 33 years.
Thank you, Andrea.
You're welcome.
Moving on to Article 7, school administration. School administration is 5% of our total budget. That is $1,696,750.78. There are 16 and a half full-time 16 and a half positions. In Article 7, $1,611,724.64 of that total is for salary and benefits, which covers 4.8% or takes up 4.8% of the 5% article. We have a reduction. We've already discussed all of these reductions. We have a reduction of an administrative assistant. This is the other half of that reduction that we talked about on the front side in regular instruction. It's the assistant principal half. This is where you see, Molly, the stipend, the opportunity culture stipend. That is the shift in teacher leadership model that we're proposing. in order to move the work forward. And also acknowledge that we're looking everywhere across the system for possible reductions, and that assistant principal at the high school. And we would be looking, we have frozen the hiring process for the assistant principal at the middle school with the proposal to shift the assistant principal from the high school to the middle school. Articles 8, 9, 10, and 11 are as written. I'm happy to read them out loud for
No need.
public. Okay. There are no position reductions proposed for Articles 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Question. Yes. Article 7, we included resignation last week. Are we looking to hire principal on top of the school?
Yes.
Questions?
Any questions?
All right. Okay, we'll kick it back to you,
Well,
Andrea.
And I'm not gonna go through this. You've seen this several times before. This is article by article where the increases lie in each of the expenditure articles. So as we make cuts, it's updated and it's as written. So you can see exactly what causes each of those expenditure articles to be increased over last year. If there are questions, I'd be happy to entertain, but it's a lot of numbers to go over and really not much has changed.
I did want to give an opportunity, if there are questions about that main care seed that we moved over at a quicker pace earlier in the meeting. Sarah is back if there are questions about that. And I think we're ready for the worksheet.
Sure. Sarah, do you want to tag team main care seed? I mean, it's,
I'm not seeing questions.
no,
No questions?
about that reduction?
Seemingly
Do
no.
we have an assistant athletic director?
We have yes,
Okay.
we have
But it's
a
not-
staff member who receives a stipend, which is considered as an assistant athletic director. Can you remind me what the stipend is?
So we pay $1,000 for each of the
Thank
sports seasons for somebody to cover either the middle school or the high school games, whichever one the athletic director can. So to call him an assistant athletic
little-
director with.
It has been
Misleading.
referred, and so I
Yeah,
just,
no.
I wanted
I heard
to.
That's what it is.
It's a-
I'm glad you're asking.
It's a very cheap
I heard the same
assistant
thing.
athletic
Right,
director
right.
for
I'm
$3,000.
glad she asked because
Is that a PE teacher that does that, or?
Actually, it's a technology, one
Technician.
of Terry's technicians outside of his workday as a technician.
So if there's, yeah, that would be, if it's referred to as an assistant, right, AD, that's it. But you're right, probably not an appropriate title. Okay. So I don't see a paper copy of the worksheet.
This one?
Oh, okay, great.
I think we talked about it
We
at
did.
the beginning.
We did.
But if we want to talk about it again.
Well, we do need to talk about it because we're looking at a 2.14% increase to the overall school budget. As we talked about, that is 7.11% to taxpayers. And we are looking to set the budget by next week, and I need to know if we're there.
I'd like to know how much we increased the local taxpayers by including or keeping the classroom instructor at the middle school.
So that cost would be sent directly down to the local, so you increase it by another, whatever that position was.
$67,811.
Is that like 0.2% or?
Let's do math.
I know.
I really don't, not in my head. It's on tape and if I'm wrong,
Yeah,
I have to, no.
Other thoughts about?
What that will do, however, though, is push it over the million mark, which is something we were trying to stay below. So the increase, the 996,000 would now be over $1 million to the 4 towns. That was something that we were, at least we internally were trying to bring below. But if that's a budget that the board can support, then we are obviously in favor.
Before you had a sheet that showed the impact on tax ratepayer by value of home, probably, we're gonna be able to see those kind of numbers?
Yep, usually I usually do that at the end of the process. It's information that I need to collect from the 4 towns. I will, once you give me, when do we meet again?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, I'll have it. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we meeting with the towns this year?
It has not been scheduled.
I think it was valuable.
Did we do that? Didn't we do that though after we set the budget?
Yes.
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 So we're not quite there yet?
No, but I think to schedule it is a good idea.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
I agree.
Schedule it is a very good idea.
When you talk to the town officials in Gardner, we've got an Airbnb that's going in, and then we also have, it looks like, worker housing going in. I'd like to know if they're doing payments in lieu of taxes or whether they're going to be paying an upper level tax rate.
So I don't want to burden Andrea with that. If you want to know, why don't you go ask?
Well, I think it would be helpful for everybody to know. Because right now, it looks like we're gonna have a 9% increase.
Yeah, we are.
So if it's
I've been doing
spread,
that math every day.
yeah, if it's
For my
spread
benefit.
out.
Yep.
Because we have other properties that are very expensive. Knowing whether there has been a deal for payment in lieu of taxes versus actual tax assessment on the properties would be helpful.
Did you call the treasurer of the town and find that out?
If not the treasurer, then the assessor. Kurt would probably be able to tell you if that's,
I would
yeah, Kurt.
I would ask her.
Yeah, it would be no different than properties that are TIFed, tax incentives, but Kurt would be able to tell you. Kurt LaBelle.
Kurt LaBelle.
Thank you. It's always helpful.
And I understand your concern. I mean, I paid my taxes this week too, and yep, they're high. But I support our schools, and this is apparently what it takes right now, but it makes our work moving forward very important to consider. Yeah, makes it very powerful. So I would love to ask for a thumbs up, thumbs down moving forward. If are we looking for more to be cut? More to be restored? Okay. So thumbs up for more to be restored. Oh, I don't have my thumb for that.
So restored, you mean add positions back?
Put back in?
I'm looking
Oh, no, I'm
for
sorry, I
the,
misunderstood. No, I don't want anything added back.
Okay, all right. Will you
Okay.
ask that again?
Yeah, but let me ask it in a different way.
Sorry.
I confused myself. My thumb went up too. Which is, I think it just went up to, anyway. If you want things brought back into this year's budget, please raise your thumb. If you're happy with where we're at, please raise your thumb. Meaning don't cut any further. And if you want to cut further, you got to tell us where.
Yeah,
So
I don't know what.
Katie, I have a question.
I know you want more, I do too, but I don't know where to
We are here to represent the children,
go. Correct.
but if I don't think the town's gonna pass it, how do I vote? You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
My understanding has always been, and this is just where I'm coming from, I guess, is that we're elected by our towns. Once we take this job, our job is the kids, we're here for the kids.
Right.
So personally, taxpayers, I understand how important that is, but I don't see how we can run our school district effectively making any more cuts. So I'm like, the taxpayers at this, we're at I think a pretty low number, a really low number.
9%.
I've been, I don't know, was this my third or fourth? But the first year I was here, there was like it was a big number and we had to go through all this and it was like a really, I don't know, stressful thing and every year there's this increase and I just don't understand why everybody's surprised by it and why they're like, cut more stuff, like it just.
Right, the state's cutting from
Like I
us.
said,
Right.
yeah, it's not
And
us.
we're trying to cut from our existing.
From our
I mean,
our kids.
I
Yeah,
understand, I'd like to put in way more, but I
Like you
can't.
just said, in recent years, or the benefit of meeting with the towns, in the 2 years that I've attended those meetings, they've never balked. They've appreciated and I understand. I mean, what happens? It doesn't pass and we have to try again. But I'd like to try and pass it with one position, like the filled positions put back in and not take more from our kids because the state is taking more from our subsidies.
So as a reminder, last year our budget failed in West Gardner and it
Mhm.
came very close to failing in Pittston. So,
I don't want to sound irresponsible, but we don't know whether it's going to pass unless we try.
And, at that point, then there's a discussion, parents, community, what do you want us to cut? What do you want?
It's not how that works. We would have people storming the doors with their own special interest and I am interested in everyone's special interest, but I'm elected to represent the children.
Well,
Nobody wants their taxes to go up.
then I think we should personally add the position back.
But we can't, none of us could possibly represent the children the way we want.
No,
We just couldn't.
We're also, we're not cutting, we're cutting the increases, that's the final judgment.
No, we're
No,
cutting,
we're cutting.
we're cutting, cutting.
We're not, but the budget isn't less than it was last year. That's what I mean, is that the total expenditure is still gonna be more than it was last year.
As is
Otherwise, we
everything.
wouldn't have.
Everything
But
is.
definitely we've received less
Yeah.
than last year.
Yeah, that doesn't,
And everything else has gone up.
Yeah, I know that, but we have to, the citizens of each town have to buy what we do. I think we're there, there's probably no more cutting we can do. I understand that. But I'm not gonna support adding anything back in that we've taken out, I think. You have your best chance of getting a budget passed at this level here.
I'm looking for one position.
I think, I just wanna put in a couple little things. Our teachers and administrators are obviously the creating the framework that we need to support our kids. The kids are really the heart of the district. I just feel like the information that we've heard from teachers this budget season has been more, I think, maybe I'm wrong, than in the past few years. And it is every year, there's teachers that speak up. I'm really worried that we're in some territory where our district is being acknowledged as one that doesn't pay attention to their teachers and their administrators, and that maybe isn't willing to support the actual students who are going to suffer from cuts, and that we're really just trying to do that bottom line taxpayer increase. Like, that just feels, it feels like I have to, I think these are cuts, like when they come to us with the budget, there's an increase, that is, everybody's having increases everywhere on everything. So for us to even cut at all is like, feels kind of crazy to me. And then for us to keep going and actually cut people who are right now employed by us and serving our kids, like, we're struggling already.
Megan, there are districts cutting 80 positions.
I
positions.
I know, but I'm not in those other districts. I'm in this district.
I understand.
And
we
I'm-
spend the least, some of the lowest amount of money per pupil. Cumberland is different than Gardner. And MSAD11 is full.
People have what they can afford, Joanne.
And that's why they're supposed to be funding us so that there's a level.
But that's not up for
playing field.
debate. We
But-
can't do that.
It's
Yes, and I'm just saying, but to
designed be
cut
a level
further
playing field.
is going to impact our teachers. Why can't we get teachers in? I think part of it is that the teachers don't know from one year to the next whether they're gonna have a position or whether the taxpayers are gonna decide, we can't pay for you, so we're going to get rid of you. And these are the people that have our connection with our children. Now, I don't
Everywhere.
have skin in this game because I don't have children in the district, but having been a teacher, I think that it is important for those relationships, and you need to have people to have those relationships. I don't think that that is where we need to be cutting if we're gonna be cutting at all further. If
What
we,
was the vote, Katie?
We have 3 people saying add the middle school position back, 2 people with a thumbs up that were there, 2 people proposing further cuts.
How many proposing further cuts?
2 thumbs I counted.
Can I offer one other unpopular suggestion?
I dare you.
Right? The classroom instructor position, that we add that to our unallocated fund balance that we carry or that we use this year. So increase the amount that we use this year by $67,811.42.
I would not be in favor of that,
Mhm.
but if the board so chooses, we can look at using additional carry forward. It would just mean that we probably have to use it
Again
every
next
year
year.
moving forward,
Right,
which means we would run out of fund balance
right.
sooner than.
Again, I called it unpopular, but just trying to.
And I hear and see what you're saying. I absolutely do. My concern is moving forward. What happens next year when we're right here again? And we definitely have declining enrollment, and we have 6 buildings that we're supporting and all the things that happen to make those 6 buildings operate every day. We have that. And until we don't have that, we're gonna have this.
And Molly, I just want you to
Prices
know
aren't going down that I'm seeing.
that I respect your position. I just don't want to be in a position where we're laying off people up mid-year like some communities down the road. I do respect where you're coming from.
I'm really trying to think of this year, knowing that, and I know we can't predict next year, but knowing that we're hoping that there's going to be a different funding formula created in the next 2 years, hopefully, maybe. And we're also talking about actively pursuing consolidation, which hopefully we will feel some savings there. So I'm just looking to preserve this year.
My understanding though is consolidation won't happen in a year.
No, I understand that
Yeah.
too, but we're certainly, we don't know anything about it this year. So we have to pass the budget for next year.
It can happen faster if our communities understand, if they will listen, hear, and understand that the reason our costs are so high is partly inflation, but mostly all of our facilities. We have a lot of real estate to support.
And even then, we're looking at a 2.14% increase.
Correct.
Which is reasonable by any other measure, right? 2.4, 2.1411? It would be considered reasonable in any other year.
When I see the numbers next week, I'm very close to supporting where we are. I know it's almost impossible to go any further, so.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. I'm waiting for those numbers as well. Can we,
since we had a majority in terms of 3, 2, and 2, to put the position back in, can we put the position back in, see the numbers, and then come back again next week?
We can do.
Can it be a scenario 1 and scenario 2?
yes, I would prefer that. I don't want to put anything in and then take it out again.
Okay.
I would like to see scenarios and then we can make a decision.
So the scenario is just adding, I just want to be very clear what I'm doing. That we're just adding the 1 middle school position back in.
Yes.
The other variable without any additional cuts as we've gone round and round, and I don't see additional cuts. The one variable being the possibility of main care seed. Again, I don't anticipate it, but it is a really fluid situation. Day to day, we get different information, and so that there could be change there, but we're looking at two scenarios. Maintaining the budget that you see tonight and adding the one position from the middle school. That's what we'll bring next week.
I expect main care seed to come in the first 2 quarters of next year to be as high as it is currently. There's those federal conversations about main care seed and autistic children. We're watching that, which is why I felt reasonably confident that maybe billing will be reduced, but I don't know. I am hoping that in special ed that we prepare for all of these scenarios and that next year all of these scenarios do not fire at once.
That'd be great.
If that happens, we have that reserve account, and during the budget meeting, we will ask taxpayers, if that happens, to be able to access just that special ed reserve funds. I'm really hoping that that will not be the case.
Dan, I don't want to put you on the spot in any way, but is there anything you'd like to offer?
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking about, you guys keep pushing the consolidation, which is fine, but that's a cost too. A big
Yeah.
cost.
Yeah.
I know it's consolidating and to get rid of that building, but it's gonna cost money to do that.
And then that
That's
will
what we
be,
gotta look at, you know, I'm
Right.
just looking further ahead than,
That's what the company, would the company do that part too?
not for free.
Well, I know, but that.
no, nothing is free.
Analyzing some of the
Yeah, right,
costs.
yeah,
That's
the
what we'll find
cost,
out
as he says, of
exactly.
closing down.
Right.
But we're not like, we're gonna sell it and make money on it. It goes back to the town, so.
If they want it, we actually ended up selling Hamlin because Randolph didn't want it. I don't expect that would be the case with some of our buildings. I think there might be interest from the towns in those buildings, but it all depends. I'm also hoping that the state looks at its construction model and we're looking at a percentage share.
Sliding scale.
So we wouldn't be funding an entire consolidated building ourselves, but rather it would be a partnership with the state. So anyway.
Okay, we have homework for
Does
next
that
week.
answer
So
your
that's what we'll do.
question? And I agree with you. I think you're right on. Nothing's free. And if it is, we probably should look twice.
Well, yeah, but the other thing is, we don't
I
have
think we all know that.
That's right. Yeah.
kids to fill the building. That's the other part of it.
Well, we've gone from bursting at the seams 30 years ago to we're not bursting anymore. So we have to think about what that looks like.
We've gone from what, 2,500 down to, we're soon going to be less than 1,700. Yep.
And to not have any financial impact from that kind of a decline in enrollment that's crazy. There's an implication with that.
Want to adjourn?
Yes, please.
We have the school
Oh,
nutrition
school
budget,
nutrition.
and if administrators would like to excuse themselves
I'll be
at this
leaving.
time, it would be okay.
You're
You're staying.
We'll try not to hold it against you for not wanting to stay.
Wow, I forgot
Thank
we
you for
had this.
being here.
So as they exit. So the next set of stapled papers is actually the school nutrition budget. It does not have a worksheet because the locals do not pay a share. Basically, the school nutrition budget is self-funding. However, we do bring it to the board every year for approval. It's basically, it's broken down into 3 areas. It's broken down into breakfast, it's broken down into lunch, and it's broken down into a la carte. So as you look through this summary, you will see the breakdown that way. If you look at the bottom of page 1, if you look at the long number stream. The last three digits actually represent buildings, and it actually is that way throughout our budget. So if you're looking at like, of course, it doesn't have lines. If you look under à la carte and then you see the first set of numbers and then at the end of it, you see 010, that tells me that it's LER. If you see 030, that is Riverview. If you see 050, it's Pittston. If you see 060, it's Helen Thompson School. 080 is the middle school and 300 is the high school. So those are the à la carte salaries for the nutrition program as you work its way through. You'll see lunch costs, you'll see some equipment. I think Linda has about $50,000 worth of equipment in this budget. We have an oven and a steam table, I believe, that are both on their way out. Some of our equipment is over 30 years old. It needs to be replaced. We try to be mindful of it. Again, what we receive from the state is funding our nutrition budget entirely. Much like the adult ed program, you will see the budget and then you will see the last page. It's one of one, the very last page. You will see where the revenue comes from. Again, most of it is from federal and from the feds and from, the state. You see very little sales. You see a little bit of sales from à la carte, kids buying things off the line. As a reminder, the state provides one meal a day for breakfast and lunch for students, so that is paid. If students want a second lunch, they have to pick up that lunch, or if they want an à la carte, that is paid. So the budget overall is an increase of 2.39% or $35,609. I don't see anything alarming in it. Again, it's just basically food costs and equipment, and some equipment repairs.
And then nutrition software, is that just to make sure that each meal is nutritionally balanced?
So NutriKids runs her, it's her point of service system. So it's just like a checkout system at the high school and the middle school. It also tracks things like exactly nutrition to make sure that she falls within the nutrition guidelines. It actually counts student meals. That is how we get our reimbursement from the state. We have to provide the number of meals served to students. In addition to providing meals to our students, we also provide meals to Spurwink. They actually pay us for those meals. So you'll see on here Spurwink, they don't have a kitchen. So the staff at the middle school prepares lunches for Spurwink, and we invoice them on a monthly basis. So you see some income from there. Overall, I don't see anything to be concerned about. If you have questions, or I don't see, it's pretty, straightforward. Thank you.
Does Spurwink come and pick up the meals?
We package them to go, they pick them up, we pay for them. There's really nothing here unless you have questions about something, which I'd be happy to go over. I would like, however, a recommendation, if you choose to do so, to move the budget forward to the full board for their approval. Again, there is no cost to the locals. It's not included as part of their tax base. It's funded, but we bring this to you for your consideration.
I move that we move this budget to the full committee.
Second,
Thank you.
well, we have 2 seconds. All those in favor? Let them eat.
Good times. Thank you.
Yeah, we're done.
Corporate budget, we've ever done, right?
11:14. All right, see you all next week.
I was going to move it before you.
Okay.
I would have appreciated